Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. Afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, looks good right now. Right out, Dr. Gorman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Denny. Nice to see you.
It's great to have you because you have, I checked resume, you have tremendous experience. It's going to be quite a talk. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you knew that this was the way to go? So tell us what you do for a living, please.
So I am an acupuncturist and a naturopath, and I help women, particularly mature women,
Bless you.
um, deal with the effects of chronic stress. And that tends to be something that has accumulated over an extended period of time. And excuse me, good.
No worries.
Glad
A
you
lot of people
pointed out that I have this.
yeah, a lot of people are allergic to me, so don't worry about it. It's not the first case.
Well, if I'm allergic to you and you're across the pond, I really have a problem, right?
It's a tiny
So,
problem.
yeah. So, I tend to find that stress has accumulated in ways that we don't commonly understand. So, just to kind of leap forward, I evaluate 12 categories of toxicity. So where we tend to think of toxicity as a really narrow, or stress as a really narrow, emotional, mental kind of situation, golly, there are
No
a lot
worries.
of other ways that stress shows up. So,
It's pretty interesting, also pretty specific. I myself am probably the worst example possible because, for example, now this is how I deal with stress. Like I completely ignore it the whole time, and
well,
when
I
I
can
go on
tell you.
vacation,
Yeah,
then
I
I
can tell
just
you that your body is not like your body's keeping the score. There's a book by
I
a
know my
scientist,
body almost left
Bessel
one
van der
time.
Kolk. Yeah.
So and when I go on vacation, I like release it, and after the third day, I feel like a truck went through me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so just for because the bad example is also an example, right? So I may be the bad example, but that's how you're not supposed to be, all right?
Yeah.
Just a quick note. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, and it's not the right thing. I don't know why I keep on doing it. I just do. So just a quick note there.
Yeah.
Now, what you are
Golly.
doing is remarkably specific. Like acupuncture in general is basically everybody from my mom's side, they're all doctors. But mostly
Okay.
pulmonary. My mother is a dentist. You have to be completely insane to ask me for any medical advice. Obviously, not your guy. I'm more into finances, but if you really into it, you definitely could have done could have focused on other areas as well. So, were you like walking on the street one day and you were like, let me be an acupuncturist and mostly focus on mature women, or did something else lead to that?
So definitely wasn't just walking down the street and a bolt of lightning hit me. Uh
You never know,
I
it might have been
That
sunny.
it could have totally been that. I'm of the mindset that bolts of lightning definitely happen. So I'm not dissing the bolt of lightning revelation, but I am a CPA in my former life from the business world, and
CPA?
certified public accountant in the United
Okay.
States. Yeah, I believe it's probably chartered accountant where you
Yeah.
are. The equivalent. And so I consulted to a lot of physicians in my practice. I did a lot of practice management consulting for physicians. And I got to see the medical field from the other side behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Just realized how backwards the priorities were. And I did have a couple of doctors that I consulted to that were more alternative kind of doctors. And it started conversations about like the different approach. And I just got really intrigued and very interested. And long story short, like fast forward, 35 years, I ended up selling my accounting firm to my partner. I had a partner, and started seriously pursuing the field that I'm in now. And so over time, being a licensed professional back then, that was kind of my standard. And when you're practicing alternative medicine, there are really only two paths to licensure that cover you in fairly broadly for the kind of alternative stuff I wanted to do. And that was either chiropractor or acupuncturist, Oriental medicine practitioner. And I really was not interested in becoming a chiropractor. I may, if I had known now if I would have known then what I know now, I maybe would have made a different decision. But I went down the path of
Whatever happens, happens for the best. So I'm sure
yeah.
you chose the best option.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I didn't even realize I was really going down the path towards becoming an acupuncturist. I was just very interested in Eastern philosophy, and started really pursuing that and started understanding like how much the energy system kind of controls your experience, health and otherwise. And the more I studied, the repetitive thing that I kept coming across is this energy system that the Oriental medicine practitioner essentially taps into for you know reversing pretty much anything you've got going on that is an unwanted condition. And so it just, when I finally got to the point where I sort of had to make a decision, it was a natural for me because I was already well down that path. And so yeah, I rarely stick needles in someone. I have a lot of techniques, tools, things I can use where I don't have to treat somebody here in my clinic. If I want to stick needles in somebody, they have to be here, right? And so I wanted to develop ways to work with people that were broader than people having to be here in my clinic.
You're not wrong about that whole energy thing. I forgot the name of the temple. It's in India. If you want to, I can research it real quick and send you an email about it. But it's fascinating because the whole temple, like the entire thing, or everything, was from one solid rock. Like they just removed the interior and they made it into a temple. And what's fascinating about it, the temple was mostly for healing and healing the body after trauma, after stress, after something. But what's most important about that temple, and again, I forgot the name, sorry about it, but it's a pretty famous one. I think it's the only one on the planet, literally from one solid rock. The acoustic is like nowhere else because the acoustic, that energy, that vibration they have there is actually one of the biggest healing factors. I honestly can't explain it and I'm pretty sure you understand. Right now, I'm an accountant. Okay, so we're not into this.
Okay.
So yeah, I understand it, but I just can't explain. But I'm pretty sure you understand what I mean because the acoustic, the vibration over there has a tremendous role of healing.
Yeah, sound is has a frequency associated with it. So most of the protocols and tools that I use specific frequency to communicate
Yeah.
with the body. Every component of the human body resonates with a certain frequency. And so if you can figure out what frequency that is, you can communicate with that particular component of the body and then reboot it. And
Exactly.
then once it starts communicating properly again, then anything can be healed. You may need a little help detoxing, a buildup or something like that, but pretty much anything can be healed. The important thing to recognize there that I just said is that you've got to figure out exactly what frequency is going to communicate with that particular thing. And we know a lot, but there's way more we don't know than we
Yeah.
know.
A friend of mine actually sent me the article about that tempo, and he was like, the acoustic is so great that if you drop a coin, no matter where you are, you're gonna hear like it's just next to you. So that's my worst nightmare. I'm going to scan the whole area. I won't be able to sleep if I don't find it. I'm not going over there. And my third question is, how did you knew this was the way to go? Now, reason I'm asking, I'm pretty sure you've noticed that too, probably. You know how people tend to go to colleges and universities because of that stigma, you have to go over there to secure the future, which hasn't been true for a while now, for a long time now. And yet they do so, and they basically go over there and just catch the first thing that they can, and they graduated it, and they kind of start working regarding that. And truth be told, from what I'm seeing, from what I'm understanding, doesn't matter who I'm talking to, no matter where they're from. If you do something that isn't for you, you're gonna be miserable. Now, if you're a single lady or a single guy, you're gonna be miserable on your own. But if you have family, it's inevitable. You will take that misery into your home. It's not because you want to, it's because that's how it is.
Yeah.
And you're a very good example because you're an accountant, and in your adult life, you still were accountant, right? So,
Right.
and afterward, but you were already structured and shaped an adult, and you knew that obviously this one for you. I'm not saying account was a mistake or anything. I'm not, I hope I'm being clear about that. Obviously it wasn't, but you understood that this wasn't exactly for you. So you went into a completely different field. It's one thing because I was a financial analyst for a while, and then I moved to accountant. It's a accountant position, it's a different job, but if you really think about it, it's fairly similar.
Yeah.
Right? 'Cause if you know about one thing, you know about, but your case is completely different.
Yeah.
So how did you know this was the way to go?
So, it's a great question. And
So far, I've never had the same answer from two
yeah,
people.
yeah, it's the I knew the last
Mm.
couple of years that I was working in the accounting field that I to use your language, was not happy. Like I knew there was something bigger that I needed to do that any practical accountant minded person would have said, just kind of like keep your day job and start like dabbling in this other stuff. And I guess I kind of did that to some degree, but I was so immersed in what I was doing. I ran the accounting firm. I consulted to mostly physicians, but I had a full-time job and then some. And there was just, when you're doing something that doesn't light you up,
Yeah,
it also drains your energy, right? So
yeah,
stress was accumulating. By the time I finally walked out of the office at night, I had nothing left, certainly nothing left to pursue a hobby of like some new career. And so I
yeah. There
really
is
just,
that element of the overtime in the accounting sphere. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So I really just hit that point where I said, like, I got to do something different. And I was willing to take the hit and make that happen, because I certainly, when I sold my practice, I had a little cushion to transition, but it definitely, I wasn't independently wealthy. I didn't
yeah.
sell a company worth $1 billion. Right. So you know, if I was counseling another person for a more gentle way to experience what I experienced, I would tell somebody to um, go do gig work. So back when I did all this, there was no such thing as Upwork or really gig work like there is today. You know, there's way more opportunities to be able to do that kind of thing, and
Yeah,
have a
the
way
requirements were
to,
different.
yeah, have a way to find oh, you need a way to reduce your hours to 20 or 25 hours a week, even if that barely allows you to make ends meet, so that you free up enough energy to be able to do some of these other things. You know, like you need energy to be able to pursue a new line of work. And a lot of times, when I first sold the accounting firm, it would have never occurred to me. I had pursued business all of my, like, adult life. And so it never occurred to me that I could be a doctor. Like, it was, when I look back at it, I think, isn't that odd that it never occurred to me that I could do that, right? Because if I could have made my path a lot faster if I would have at that moment said, this is what I'm going to do. But I just needed so much healing coming out of that
Yeah.
super stressful period of my life that, that I just, it took me quite a few years to work my way through that. Um, but if I had to, recommend a path to someone else, I would say, you've got to figure out how to get your hours down to half time ish. And then give yourself a little leeway to allow that inspiration to start to rise up in you, because there will be a lot of healing that needs to happen if you're coming out of a very stressful situation. And it's going to take you a few months probably to get through just that. But I, as I mentioned before, I had been working with physicians. I obviously was interested in health and healing. It's just that my paradigm was that I had to be involved in that world as using my, degrees and licensure, which was, you know, degrees in accounting and finance, and my licensure as a CPA and CFP, and then also my specialty training to consult to physicians. So in my mind, I had I was interested in that world, but the only way I was qualified to be in that world was coming from my place of established experience. And so it really requires, if you're wanting to make a big shift like that, it really requires a couple things. One, just to really be willing to think outside the box and say, like, I am not at all limited um by what I've done thus far, right? And then just allow yourself to, like, dream into what's possible.
You said it perfectly. And I've also noticed something else, at least from my perspective. I may be wrong, but most of the issues, most of the stress that we have is because the world is way too dynamic sometimes. It's just how it is at the moment. It's way too dynamic. A lot of things are changing, a lot of things are happening at the same time. Maybe the world has always been like that. I don't know, but at least, because now we have social media, the broadcast is completely different, the media is completely different. So maybe we're just seeing more. Maybe it was always like that, but maybe back then people didn't pay that much attention on that. And I'm personally thankful for COVID because we kind of hit the break when that happened and the world kind of stopped. Now, of course, different countries handle it in a different way. Personally, we not a lot of people, not a lot of things have changed here. I talk to a lot of people from elsewhere, so I'm hearing stories from here and there, of course. But in general, the world kind of stopped. I think that was a good thing because it allowed us, or at least those that wanted to look, my personal example, I had to look into myself because in general, I'm a very happy person. I so far have never made a mistake as a career or anything. I tried a few things here and there, didn't work, didn't last much time. So I was okay with it. But it gave me that option to stop and to think, what else is there? Because what else can I do? Right. And that really helps. So I think once you're in that situation, when you're in that solitude situation, I think it's pretty good, pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And
And
healthy,
it's,
I mean like mentally healthy.
yeah, for sure. And it's important that we not rely on like outside influences like a world lockdown due to a pandemic to force us to take some time for
Yeah.
reflection and self-care time. And in my book, I wrote a book, What's Your Kryptonite?
Put it
And
on the camera.
yeah,
All
so
right.
this is my book, What's Your Kryptonite? And I encourage
Send me the
people to,
link so that I can put it in the description of the video,
okay.
please.
I encourage people to become their own PCP. So in the healthcare world, PCP is your primary care practitioner, and that's typically somebody who acts as a gatekeeper. So you can't really get to the doctor that is actually able to, address your specific situation in the way that Western medicine deals with it, without going through this PCP. But the way I translate PCP is primary care person, and I say you need to be your primary care person because
And about
you're the one.
2,500 years ago, Hippocrates
Yeah,
said the same thing. He can't cure you if
yes,
you can't cure yourself. You
right.
you need to start working on it, and then you have to go to him, and he'll see what he can do. So we
Yeah.
haven't learned much in 2,500 years. Sad.
Well, I would say that is not um necessarily due to the individuals. We have been culturally conditioned to believe that there's a quick fix for everything.
Yeah.
And so the minute you've got some symptom going on, you're tootling off to the pharmacy of some sort, regardless of the country you're in, really, and you're finding some over the counter something to squash that symptom. And then you might get away with that for a short period of time. But what you missed was what was actually creating that symptom in the first place, which then you've allowed to go on unabated. And so now that real underlying symptom is continuing to escalate and creating additional problems. And so the way I refer to it is dis-ease escalates to disease. And now you may have some real problem that is beyond anything you can buy over the counter medication for.
Yeah.
And now you go tootle off to the doctor, and their next suggestion for you is some prescription medication, which is much stronger. And when you talk about using frequency to help with healing, there's a book called The Body Electric, and in these science
Sounds
experiments,
very familiar.
they were trying to reverse engineer how a salamander can regrow a leg, regrow a limb. So if a salamander loses a limb due to injury or whatever, they can regrow that
Yeah.
limb. And they were trying to figure out how that happens, because obviously if we can figure out how it happens for a salamander, we ought to be able to do that for other creatures, right? And so I'm going to make another very long story very short. What
Go
they
on.
found was that the signal, humans think the signal must be some super strong, powerful sledgehammer kind of signal to get something like that done. But what they found was that it was this really subtle signal that they didn't even have equipment to create a signal in that like frequency spectrum. They had to build the equipment to be able to do that. And when they figured that out, this like microcurrent signaling, they actually could reproduce what was going on electrically in a salamander to grow a limb. It was a fascinating read, but I'm into that like techie kind of, I use technology in my practice because that's my jam. but but
I mean, you're
the
supposed to.
yeah, but it was really interesting because the when we go to the doctor and they prescribe medication, that's the equivalent of the sledgehammer,
Yeah.
like what we need is some really subtle adjustments to what actually is creating the problem beneath the surface. And what we get is this sledgehammer medication trying to whack-a-mole the symptoms down.
That's actually absolutely fascinating and sad at the same time because now I've noticed at the same too, the sledgehammer always plays. I'm
Mm-hmm.
to I'm in the EU right now, right? I'm talking to people from India, from China, from the two Americas. It's always the hammer. So I knew the Vikings went to the United States a while ago, but I didn't know Thor left his hammer over there like that. He left it all over the place. That's But you are 100% right. And as an end, if you have, I'm sure you have a thousand, but if you can pick one advice that you can give for the audience, which is mostly, those people that are thinking about moving elsewhere, what kind of a job I'm doing, why am I doing it, I'm not happy, what am I supposed to do? It can give the audience one advice, what will it be?
Well, I would say that you need to do some soul searching. So the first thing I would do is take a retreat. What I tend to find is that it takes about 3 weeks. You need to step away from what you're doing for at least 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks.
About a
Um,
month.
call it a sabbatical, if you need to. But if you can take a sabbatical from what you're doing rather than like full like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Because if you take a sabbatical, you may give yourself a little bit of breathing room to have a attitude adjustment, to remember some of the things you actually enjoy about your work beyond, certainly it's stress relieving to get a regular paycheck, to know you've got a roof over your head and food on the table. So, it gives you a little time to appreciate that a little more, but then also to really look for um those things that you really do enjoy about what you're doing, and your skills, and then how that might translate into something that maybe you've thought of doing, but you just kept like saying, that's not really a possibility. And, I would recommend a couple of books if this is really the place that you're at in your life.
Yeah, please
One
do.
is, yeah, one is The Vein of Gold by Julia Cameron. So Julia Cameron's main work is The Artist's Way, but her second book essentially is The Vein of Gold, and it talks more about figuring out what you really love to do, so that was a really awesome book. And it's been around for a lot of years now, and it doesn't get as much mileage as The Artist's Way. She's known for The Artist's Way. But then there's another book that if you're not sure this is really creating a problem for you, you want to read a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap. And The Big Leap is another one of those books that is a page turner that if you're at a point in your life where you're just feeling like there's got to be something you're missing, then that's another really great book to help you work through this kind of transitional period.
That's pretty solid and pretty good advice. Dr. Gala, thank you for being with me. Please don't forget to send me all the links so that I can put them in the description below. And in case somebody wants to buy the book, they can get in touch.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks for having me, Denny.
Thank you for being with me. Have a remarkable day. Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.